Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman. Today, I got a real treat for you. His name is Travis Walbeck, and he is the Assistant Director for Training and Outreach for NCAT, located at Auburn University. Travis, say what's up to everybody.
Hey man, Joseph, I'm glad to be with you today. This is exciting.
Sure thing, man. Sure thing. So, you and I forgot where we linked up at. It was probably online somewhere, and I usually find people with cool, I would say, angles within our industry. And so I see you're a part of NCAT. NCAT stands for the National Center for Asphalt Technology.
Correct.
And you think of asphalt, you think of technology. What? Like, where is there a computer in asphalt? Where is there technology? It's the streets, man. Like, what? where's there technology in asphalt? So tell us what NCAT is and kind of what your marching orders are. And then also tell us a couple wins that NCAT might have had recently.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because we do get people all the time that say, "What are you still studying or looking at asphalt about?" So, being the National Center for Asphalt Technology, we have a couple missions, and really the three things that we are focusing on is research in asphalt pavements, testing in asphalt pavements, and training for asphalt pavements. And really, NCAT was created in 1986. We're a partnership between the National Asphalt Paving Association and Auburn University. But really, NCAT, over its existence in the last however many years that is, close to 40 years now, has really carved out its own niche in that asphalt world. So we have a lot of researchers that do fantastic things on cutting edge additives we can put in, thicknesses we can do, all sorts of different things that we can research there. We have a testing laboratory that is busting at the seams, 22,000 square feet asphalt laboratory, and we are running out of space.
Okay.
And then our training programs, we teach between 13 and 1,500 people a year, sometimes more than that. This week, we have 5 classes in session.
Wow.
They're in Puerto Rico, they're here in Alabama, they're in North Dakota, and they're here in our building.
Wow. So many questions. So you say you're training that many people a year. Are these like high schoolers? Are these guys looking for their second career? Are these guys that might get hired on by a big firm, a big asphalt paving contract, and they say, hey, go get some education so you can come back and operate more efficient? Like, what's the makeup of the trainees that you get?
Great question. Great question. So I tell people all the time that realize that we work for Auburn University. That's where we're connected. And they're like, oh, you teach college students. No, we don't. Now we have classes on campus. We have students that work with us getting master's degree and PhDs in asphalt. But the majority of the people that we teach are engineers, technicians, and so forth that are out on the paving projects, in the laboratories, at the plant doing the work there. So we see a couple, 3 or 4 different categories of people. We see folks that work for an agency, whether that's a DOT or a county or a city. We see people that are working for the contractor, that are the QC lab technician that's doing the quality control, or somebody that's out on the paving project. We see pavement inspectors that may be third party or agency.
Yep.
And then we see consulting engineers that want to have the opportunity to do designs or to do the inspection or to do the testing themselves.
Okay. And, you keep saying Auburn, and Auburn's a university. And when I think of university, you kind of pick what, I guess, major, you want, and whatever major, fill in that bucket full of classes and courses. It kind of you lead yourself up to that major. So what does it look like when, let's say, a third-party construction or asphalt inspector, their own mom and pop, their own, sole proprietor, they want to learn more about asphalt. They come to you. Do they get to pick their own courses and kind of end up with the desired result, or is it some curriculum that like how does that work? What you guys roll out to be taught or to be learned?
Great question. So the majority of the training courses that we teach are contained within 1 week.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's only 3 days, maybe it's 5 days, but we'll have folks that come in and do that training in person all day long. Folks find that certification or that training course either through our website, or maybe their DOT requires this certification. We have several of those kinds of agreements with different DOTs where we certify their lab technicians, their mix designers, their inspectors that are out on the roadway for both the foundational subgrade and dirt work to the asphalt pavement inspection itself. We also work with military runways. There's a couple certifications that belong with the U.S. Corps of Engineers that is required in their specifications. So these folks find us typically through word of mouth. That's our biggest marketing avenue, if you will.
Yeah, you said Puerto Rico. They have asphalt out there. Are they training to be able to better operate more efficiently or better have better asphalt roads in Puerto Rico?
So really the work that we're doing down there primarily is with their agency or their version of a DOT. But we also have the contractors call us and have us come do custom courses as well. And we are trying to lift the quality of the asphalt pavements for the citizens of Puerto Rico. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, there's some problems they have down there with segregation, with smoothness, some of those things that cause those pavements to not last as long as we would like them to.
Sure.
And so if we teach people what they should see during construction, then we feel, the agency feels, Federal Highway Administration, who gives them federal money to have nice roads, we all feel like that those people who are competent, trained, and certified are going to be able to see that construction and give us a better road in the long run.
Sure, sure. I'm in Arizona. If you know anything about Arizona, it's hot, right? So we get a lot of cracks. I mean, just, guys are crack filling all day, every day out here. Does NCAT solve for the different climates? And like, let's say you have 30 guys in the class, those 30 guys might be from 30 parts of the country or world. How does NCAT solve for all those different types of applications in different, climates?
Man, great. That's a great question. That's a great question. So the United States is divided into 4 climatic zones. We have the wet non-freeze. That's where I am in the Southeast. We have the wet freeze, which is New England or West Virginia, where I did a big part of my DOT career. I grew up in Utah, right? So it's split between the 2 regions that are in the West, which is the dry freeze, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and the dry non-freeze, which is Arizona, New Mexico, most of California. And then you got that Portland and Seattle area that doesn't see the freeze as much, but it is wet. So we definitely do look at that. We use different asphalt binders that are graded out for different temperature or climate zones there. But then we also look at those distresses. You mentioned cracks a minute ago. The cracks you're seeing in Arizona are primarily what we would call environmental cracks that are coming from aging out or the oxidation of the pavement, which makes it brittle and less able to withstand the loads and so forth. And you get up in the north, you go up into Montana, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, up there, they're seeing temperature cracks where when the pavement gets cold and shrinks, we need an asphalt binder that is flexible enough to take those forces, distribute them, and not crack. So we definitely are looking at the different distresses in the climate zones. We teach about them. So we have test sections in Minnesota, test sections here in Alabama that we're comparing the same treatments against each other to see how they perform in those different climate zones. So yes, that's definitely something we keep track of.
Sure. The 3 things says you focus on: research, testing, training. Which I feel like every association that should kind of be on their forefront: researching, testing, training, getting the knowledge from those who might have it around the country to everybody else who might want it around the country or world. What would you say is the tempo, the pace of finding what's new and innovative out there in the country? Because I always ask the question, like, you've been at it for so many years, you could just put your feet up on the desk and say, well, I'm Travis, I know everything. So what do you say? What do you think NCAT does to be able to find, might be some guy in the, in the southwest side of Idaho, and he's solved for this one problem that nobody else has solved for? Like, how do you find that guy and get his solution to the masses?
Man, another phenomenal question. So, we try to keep our finger on the pulse of the asphalt industry, and we do that in a couple different ways. We are oftentimes requested to come speak at conferences and research meetings. We've got about 10 or so research professors that work with us, and those guys, some of the other assistant directors here, myself, our director, we get frequent invitations to speak at conferences, and there we can see what's going on in the industry. Then we get hired to do a lot of research as well. So we do that either through the Federal Highway Administration, the National Academy of Arts and Sciences, through the National Cooperative Highway Research Program, where we bid against other companies that do asphalt research to bring that on and do that kind of work. Or we'll do one-off contracts, right, with an association maybe of contractors that says, hey, we would like to look at this problem. But if we see something out there, we also have the opportunity to say, hey, here's a research needs statement. Let's find some funding for that. Is that something that we want to look into? So one of those right now that's being looked at is plastics, recycling plastics to put into asphalt.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of challenges there. Sounds like a good idea. Let's put that waste plastic in our road. We don't have to worry about it anymore. But we want to make sure we don't allow that to happen without ensuring that the performance of that pavement is not going to be suffering because we've put that additional additive in there. So that's an example of something that's out there. We also try to really listen to the agencies and listen to what they want. They're the ones that are paying for these roads to be redone or these roads to be built in the first place. So, what is it that they're after? What is it that meets their goals? So one of the ways we do that is through an organization that we belong to called CAPRI, the Consortium for Asphalt Pavement Research and Implementation. And it's an organization of people both from a DOT or an agency side and contractors, suppliers, equipment manufacturers, and so forth that get together twice a year and talk about important issues in research in asphalt that we can then, through that organization, they fund some small projects. That's another way we keep our finger on the pulse of the asphalt industry.
Sure. Would you say, I don't want to talk revenues, but I wanted to ask like how NCAT is funded, meaning you said there's contractors, sometimes there's municipalities or agencies, they might pay you to say, hey, can you help us solve for X? And then also a revenue stream of probably the courses and, and people signing up to take classes. But I'm sure there's I don't know how to phrase this the best way. There's probably a way that you're looking towards in the future, because I mean, when you're solving a problem and that problem solved, there's no more problems to solve with it. So what do you think is coming down the pipeline in regards to pavement preservation, asphalt, that there's like the new frontier you might be looking into?
So it's interesting. You touched on a couple things there that really resonate with me, because preservation is a big part of what I did in West Virginia when I was part of their agency there. And we have some great things that we've done here at NCAT that I've been able to jump on board with. So we've done preservation treatments in low volume and high volume here in the hot wet. We've also done it in the Minnesota in the cold wet or the freezing zones up there. Put the same exact treatments on both high and low volume in both climate conditions, and we can compare them against each other for the preservation. The interesting thing is some of the treatments that were worked by our parents and grandparents are still very, very great ways to preserve pavements. But for some reason, we've lost the art of getting it done, or we've lost the public support of using that particular treatment. So in the West, chip seals are very, very popular. We see that, some people call it tar and chip. Essentially, you put an asphalt emulsion out on the ground, and then you spread aggregate gravel over the top. In the East, it's not as popular, even though in certain places, for instance, North Carolina, they have a really, really strong chip seal program. The agency I was involved with before I came to NCAT West Virginia, they had crews within the state that traveled around the state to do these chip seals. But once that went away, the contracting industry wasn't built up to do that, and it kind of fell out of favor. Well, then we tried to bring it back. We got people that complained, said, man, that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. So, really coming back around to that preservation experiments that we have been a big part of here at NCAT is great for the preservation industry. We've got one road out here that's got, I think we're at year 14.
Wow.
that they've been out there and not been done, not had any sort of maintenance done to them. And there's 24 sections on that particular road that are everything from a fog seal or a crack seal up to thin lays, or, you know, putting multiple treatments together like a chip seal with a microsurface over the top, or even fiber reinforced.
Yeah.
So all sorts of different things that are out there.
Okay.
You know, you asked a little bit about funding.
Yeah.
We are 100% soft funded. So we don't have a line item from the university or from the state or federal government that says this is money to pay for NCAT's salaries or building or anything like that.
Yeah.
So everything that NCAT brings in as far as revenue is concerned is either research that we sell, testing we sell, or training that we sell. That's our revenue sources there. So, you know, a contractor may pay us directly to have their people sit in a class to learn about the soup to nuts of asphalt, or to sit with us to get an Alabama DOT lab technician certification, or sit with us to get a North Dakota pavement inspector certification, or to get the military runway quality control manager certification.
Sure.
But then we also have agencies that hire us outright to come in and put together a program and teach a couple hundred people, maybe workshop style, classroom of 30 or less style. So we have so many different contracting mechanisms on how we can offer that training.
You know, I love the soft funding because, I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of agencies that might get federal funding or funding, you know, kind of their normal yearly, you know, bag of money. And what makes you perform well? Well, you know, you're going to get the money next year. You know, I'm guessing for you, you're like, hey, we actually got to perform and do the right things and be prudent about our dollars to be able to operate next year, you know, through being profitable, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy out of the Central Valley, California, and he was a street supervisor for it could have been a city about 40, 50,000. I'm not sure how much roadway he had, but he had the problem of every salesman telling him they had the hottest thing out. You know, it could have been the piece of equipment. It could have been whatever application they were laying down, whatever. So what he did was he said, hey, you 4 guys, I want you all to pave a 1/4 mile worth of road on this one back road. And we're going to let it rock for a whole year and see which one sticks, you know, see which one performs the best. And he did that, and he found the best. I forgot what he said, but I guess it's irrelevant. But I love how you said you have 22,000 square feet of testing, you know, internally. I wish I could have my camera on me and be with you right now and see what it looks like. But give us I guess, a kind of lay of the land of what that A/B testing could look like internally.
So the testing in our laboratory that we have here, we do all sorts of performance tests. In fact, we have some testing that we do there that's relatively niche. We have some proprietary stuff that we've created here. We've got a really good mechanical engineer that's invented a weathering system where we can weather the asphalt samples to see how they do with that age and time, from UV, from humidity changes, and so forth.
Yeah, but simulating time, I'm sure, is tough, like, because you can't fast forward real life, right?
Very true, very true. But so we're looking at cracking tests, we're looking at rutting tests. Those are 2 of the most popular right now. We have some durability tests that we do as well, and we have a full asphalt binder laboratory as well, where we're looking at just the glue that glues the rocks together in our asphalt pavements. And, you know, if there's a new test out there, we're going to grab a hold of that. And so most of those tests are either released at a conference like the what we call AAPT. It's the Association of Asphalt Pavement Technologists. And somebody will write a paper and invent a new test, and they'll present it at a meeting like that. And we'll say, hey, you know, that's something we think is relevant. Let's see if we can replicate based on the standard they put out. We also frequently attend the AASHTO, or the American Association of State Highway and Traffic Officials meeting, where they go through the specifications and make sure that they're still valid, that people are using them, that they're appropriate. We go to those meetings to make sure we're in touch with what they're doing. And we also go to the ASTM meetings and have people on those boards. So those testing procedures that are being, you know, updated or first created, we want to have our finger on that, so we know we can do those tests as well in our facility here. It's kind of interesting. You were talking about your buddy that in Central Valley, California, there to put several treatments on the road. That's a lot like our preservation stuff. Now that's outdoor, right? That is a real road seeing real live traffic. And that's what we have here with our preservation treatments. That's what we have here with our test track facility, is real vehicles in the real weather and how do they last over time. So it's kind of cool that we have that bit of a separation between the laboratory testing and the real world in the field testing. And we've got a couple projects we've done on our test track facility where we're correlating the two together to tell us, is this test in the laboratory really giving us an indication of what kind of performance we get in the field?
Sure. Like, let's say there's a brand new city, and they're like, hey, we got to start our street division. What should they nail first? Like, coming from sports, like, I feel like you should put all your best athletes on defense, because at least you won't get scored upon, then you'll figure out the offense and who can throw the ball, catch the ball, run the ball, and all that. But just put all your best athletes on defense, because then you won't get scored. So, like, let's say you're starting off a new city, you start a new program, for streets. What should you start with? Is it equipment? Is it hiring personnel? Is it, finding what, like you said, the hot, wet, the wet, dry, the wet, freezing, like finding what climate you're in and figuring out what application you should put down? Like, where should one start?
So I love you covered all sorts of different items in there, right? But I'll tell you what, one of the biggest things that a new road needs to have is good drainage.
Okay.
Get the water away, because water up underneath that road is going to jeopardize the foundation of the road, and the pavement's not going to be able to carry the load we want it to. So when you see a pothole out there that's got a puddle in it, and they just throw some mix in it and drive away, that water is going to come back and it's going to cause that same trouble. So I think a new city really needs to take care of their drainage, make sure we got the water away from this road. And then after that, I think a good design and construction, monitoring, quality control is probably your next place to put your people on defense, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? Let's make sure that we're going to build this road the way we know it should be built. The new razzle dazzle product that's out there may not be the solution for what we need to do. Let's build the foundation of the road the right way initially, and then we can peel off the top, put a new coat back on the top with the new razzle dazzle if we like when it comes out. Or we can go back to the same old thing that we know works and use it as well. But that foundation, I think, is really important.
Gotcha. I always like to talk AI just to see how you might be using AI internally, whether it's like crafting a association wide email, or is it like applying it to a certain math formula where you got to nail the binder. Like, how are you using AI internally?
Man, I love this question. So I'm going to push you right to one of the things that's out there. There is a website called heynapa.com, and it's put out by the National Asphalt Paving Association, and it is a chat bot that is built on the Chat GPT software. However, they've chosen to limit the material that it pulls from to answer. Mm-hmm. So it only pulls from NAPA published documents, Federal Highway Administration published documents, and the NCAT research published documents. We know that information that's feeding the answer to that chat bot is vetted and peer reviewed.
I love it. Yeah.
And so it's limited. The other thing that it does is it gives the user the resources that it pulled from. It gives them links to the page or the full document and tells you how much of it used. So that's such a fantastic way. Anybody that wants to know something about asphalt, that's really the place to go, is the heynapa.com. I still use ChatGPT, right?
For what?
So things like I'm involved in a group that has a newsletter we put out every quarter. And so I'll take a research document and say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a 4-sentence summary of this work. And then I'll go in and edit it, make sure it's what I want it to be. And then that goes out as a part of one of the articles. And then I just recently started playing with the photo versions, right? and making some photos, and I'm trying to upgrade some of our training by having these photos that I can use AI to generate that gives me what I want, and I can tweak in little pieces of that photo to be more what I want instead of using photos from the 80s, the 90s,
Yeah.
early 2000s. It's like, why has that guy got a hat that's so tall on his head? Well, because it was in 1990. That's what we wore back then.
Gotcha. Infrastructure Jobs Act, the fund that came out, the federal fund that came out. Did that affect you at all? Did you see a shakeup? Did you see more money being flowed into the industry? Like, did that have an effect on what NCAT?
Sure. So a lot of that money was intended to go right to the agencies to try to get the work done. And so a couple things that from that could, something we see is maybe some of those agencies want to learn more about what they can do with their roads from the research side. So maybe they hire us through either a contract directly or through the Capri organization, or other Federal Highway Administration pooled funds. They can hire us to help them, make a decision. So that may be from, thinning up the pavements or using a polymer modified binder to put down a surface course that is thinner and less durable or more durable. Or maybe that's using recycled materials as your foundational layers. All sorts of stuff they could do that way. The next thing would be that, they've got to staff up. Right? They need more people. And so some of our training programs can help those folks with that. And we didn't see anything direct, right? I didn't see a change in our training numbers as far as the number of attendees or anything based on that. But we definitely heard from our agency partners about, we've got more money we need to get spent.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are Travis's Google alerts set to? And for the listeners that might not be familiar with Google alerts, what Google alerts are is where people in certain industries or with a certain expertise, where they get their data from. Like, where does Travis go, and what do you listen for that could be hot on the news or hot off the presses to insert into your daily, weekly, monthly workflow?
So, I mean, I'm always wanting to see what agencies are doing, what agencies need, where I see somebody that needs training. That's my focus, right? In being the training and outreach guy. So if there's a new technology out there or something that we've researched in the past that we think is implementation worthy, we want a part of that. I'll give you an example. Thick lift paving of asphalt. So traditionally, asphalt's not been placed any more than 3 to 4 inches thick per layer.
Okay.
Right? And then you'll put multiple layers together to get your 6, 8, 10, however many inches you need out there. We had an agency hire us several years ago to say, hey, we want to do this all in one pass. Can we put 8 inches down and still get the density necessary to get the life out of this pavement? And we were very successful with them. They then turned and used that in their construction of real roads in their state. And we're starting to see other agencies have that interest in all climatic zones of the U.S. And so that's something I really want to push, and actually have got a little scope of work with Federal Highway Administration to help put recommendations out there for agencies to use that kind of thing. So I want to see those new technologies out there, right?
Yeah.
I want to see a need for training. Had a great call this morning with the Bureau of Prisons that says, hey, we want to train some of these folks that are coming out of prison to have a marketable skill that's got a certificate at the end. They can go out there and say,
I got this. Yeah,
I know how to do this kind of work. And they've even got parking lots and roadways that are in their facilities that they want to pave to give these people experience.
Wow.
So I want to know about those things that are out there that need to be done.
I see this because, again, Public Works, we look at the diesel mechanic shortage. Like, there's going to be 400,000, we're going to be short so many. In the water industry, there's jobs that's been open for 19 months that nobody's applied for. What have you seen on your side of the playground that cities, contractors have done to entice those new younger workers to come into the industry and get them trained up, and then also retain them and keep them around?
Yeah. So it's interesting. The asphalt industry historically is slow to change. historically, and that's on all fronts, right? What we
Why
put
do you
down the
think that
road.
is?
I don't know. I don't know exactly why that is, but we typically are. I think business models are built to what they need to be. Agencies are reluctant to make, a risky change because, heaven forbid a road fails.
Yeah.
Are we gonna fire that engineer? Are we gonna, put him away in a dark closet and never let him see the daylight again? What are we gonna do to that person?
Yeah.
And so, slow to change. So when it comes to attracting, a new generation of folks to work in our industry, there's a couple different areas that needs to be done. One, we need to attract people that want to do the blue collar hands-on work, whether that's in a laboratory or that's out on the roadway or that's at a plant or it's at an aggregate quarry, wherever that may be. We need to attract those people. And I think we're a little short on reaching a number of people that we ought to, that realize there's good jobs.
Yeah.
There's good jobs that can feed a family.
Yeah.
There's good jobs with room for promotion by going that route.
I'd echo that. I'm a part of an association called MSA, Maintenance Superintendent Association. We're out in Arizona, and it's mainly about, pavement preservation, roads, streets. And one, I would say the gripe I have about that, or this side of of public works, is that the certificates, there really isn't any. Meaning in the water side, you can get your production 1, you can get your wastewater 1, wastewater 2, wastewater 3, wastewater 4, and that's how you progress, find better jobs and more money through your career. I have a college degree. A college degree is like, oh, you got 1, and then you have to figure it out from there. With the certifications, you can kind of keep taking your bumps and all in the way. So do you think there will ever be something like that on your side of the playground?
So I think there is.
Okay.
Most agencies have certification requirements for folks that are working in the laboratory, that are inspecting the roadways to make sure the asphalt was put down correctly, that are conducting the mix designs to make the mixture, right?
Okay.
How much of this rock, how much of that rock, how much of this binder needs to be in there. So most agencies have that, and it is part of the Federal Highway Administration's requirements. We've had a couple agencies come to us with their hat in their hand saying, we're in trouble. We might lose our funding. We need to have a certification program, and we've heard you guys can do it. Got a new one coming online right now that's a lot of fun for me because it's U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh,
I don't want to call them out.
Jealous, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at a chance to maybe stay an extra weekend beforehand and scuba dive while I'm down there.
Travis will be 10 when he gets back.
there you go. So I believe that most agencies have that sort of a system. One of the troubles is it doesn't transfer state lines.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so that becomes an adventure, and they may not require the contractors to have different levels. They have their people that are required different things. But I was just visiting with one of the big equipment manufacturers here earlier this month, and they're trying to create multiple levels of a paving crew member certification. It's a certificate that they
the
push
operators.
out,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And to push that out, and they want us to get involved in like their senior or their top level paving crew person, that's going to be your foreman or your superintendent, because what they want to do is they want to say, hey, we want you to teach these guys about the mixes and the material before it comes to the road. Things that they should be able to know and look for, and so they can talk with the QC lab or the plant manager or the agency engineer and be more informed about what they're doing when they have that discussion. So I'm excited to get involved in that. Being a big equipment manufacturer, they're a big name, I promise you. People are going to know who they are, and that's going to be a recognized certificate when they move forward.
Gotcha. Doesn't that kind of monopolize the?
I could see that. I don't think it's going to be a nationally recognized. I think it's going to be more of a thing that a guy can say, I'm not real happy where I am, or I'm tired of winter shutdown. Right? I live in Nebraska. I'm tired of winter shutdown. I'm going to move to Arizona, and I can go to the contractor that may hire me there and say, look, I've got this X brand equipment, level 3 certification paving crew person. And that new employer can say, this person's got that. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that finds value. And I mentioned earlier about one of our staff members is at a course this week, talking about asphalt plants, right?
Uh-huh.
And learning better how to operate an asphalt plant.
Yeah.
And that is from an equipment manufacturer. Another asphalt plant manufacturer isn't going to have the same tweaks and so forth, but it's all good information that
Totally.
transfers across the board.
Yeah.
And where we work with multiple equipment manufacturers that way, I don't think any of it's going to be proprietary or a corner on the market. Yeah.
Gotcha. We know how those manufacturers are for sure.
Yeah.
What would you say? What would you say is your most common inbound call? Is it, hey, I'm having an issue with training, or hey, I need this, or like, I guess, what kind of problems cross your desk day to day?
So I get a lot of calls that says, hey, I've got staff and I want to get them trained up. What do you have to offer? We've heard of this program, we've heard of that program.
Mhm.
The other one that's probably neck and neck is, we need this certification. When can you schedule a course?
Okay.
And so I pull from all across our staff. I've got research engineers and research professors and lab technicians, that travel all over the place teaching these classes, because we have so many requests. We need that structure. In fact, my boss has said to me for the last 2 years, we need another you. We need another person like you with some agency experience that can go out and do more of this training, because we're pulling those other guys away from their, guys and gals, we're pulling them away from their day-to-day job to go do the training.
Yeah. You talked about research professors and kind of those who are, I would say, make up the NCAT, I guess, roster.
Mm-hmm.
Where I guess, let's talk about your background and where you find most of your talent to be able to train and go around the country and find these different anecdotes.
So, the research professors here are fantastic. Some of them are really great at teaching, and some are not as great at teaching. So the folks that I find are the best instructors for us are folks that either have experience in working for a contractor or a consulting engineer, or folks who have had their teeth cut as a DOT staff member in asphalt. And so we've got some folks that have done that. One of my favorite guys to teach with from our organization here, he was looking for food money when he was an undergraduate, and found this temporary, this part-time job he could do at NCAT, and started working, and has stayed for 20 something years now. He's got a master's degree in asphalt, but he has seen so much because he's traveled all over doing, testing for the last 20 years, that he can pull those experiences together. But really, somebody who has worked the industry and wants to make that move to go to this education stuff, but I need him to be a good instructor.
Mm-hmm.
I can coach him up, but you got to have somebody that's not afraid to ask the questions, not afraid to get in front of a group of people, and so forth. That's where I'm looking for folks.
Gotcha. Do you prefer those with agency experience, contract, or private experience, or like?
I don't know that we have a huge preference.
Okay.
The folks who, the fun part is trying to find somebody that's got some agency experience but doesn't have the golden handcuffs on yet. Right? That realizes that I got to stay here before I get retired. The other thing is somebody who's, that has worked with an agency long enough that they're eligible to retire, but they're not done working.
Mm-hmm.
Is another great place to be. And we've pulled folks, even research professors, that have been folks that have a master's or a doctorate degree already, and work for an agency are pulling out of that agency to come work for NCAT. But that experience of seeing both sides of the fence is extremely important for us.
Yeah. What do you think I missed in our conversation so far? Like, what are some questions that you mainly get from people that which you can answer on the call today?
How do you find more about NCAT training, and what do you offer? That's something that people are looking for. And we have a bunch of different ways to do that. You can jump on our website under ncat.us. Simple URL, man. Yeah. NCAT.us. And there's a training and education portion of that where you can find classes we teach. Most of those are limited to a week, like I mentioned before.
Okay.
So it's all kind of bottled up right there together. You can keep a pulse on what we're doing by subscribing to our newsletter, which is only twice a year.
That's it, man.
That's it, twice a year. Yeah, because
sure
the
it's
folks that
jam-packed.
are writing those articles have real jobs too. You know, I'm not full time writing those articles, so that's twice a year. But that's a great way because we have an email list that comes out of that. Where if I've got a course coming up, I hit up our folks and say, hey, we need some folks. Can you send out a mass email and let our customer base know this class is out there?
Yeah.
We're on all social media platforms. Strong on LinkedIn and Instagram. We keep our Facebook going as well. And then I always love the opportunity to plug just these little bite-sized training courses that we have. They're 3 to 5 minute long.
Love it.
on a YouTube channel. They're
Love it.
conversational. They're high level. I've mixed in a ton of dad jokes. But the YouTube channel is called Training in Your Pocket.
Okay.
And that whole idea is, with a cell phone. This is the kind of thing that can be watched on a cell phone. And
selfishly, I love that concept. I mean, that's
Mhm.
pretty much what I do. Is I want people like we talked about earlier. They want to get into a career. They're sick and tired of jobs. They want to drive Uber anymore. They want to do something where they can keep progressing throughout their career, but they just don't know where to start learning about it. Because no man, women also, but men, we want to be able to show up with our chest out and say, I kind of know about this thing.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a beginner's mind and all that. But we want to show up and say, I know what I'm doing. And that's where, like you said, training in your pocket can get you to that from zero competency to like maybe a 1 or a 2, get hired and then progress from there. You don't have to start at 0 anymore.
Yeah. And that video series has got everything from the parts of a paver, the types of rollers, crack type identification to, how to perform rutting test in the laboratory or a different cracking test in the laboratory, or how to go through what we call asphalt volumetrics calculations are in there. So it's, some lab stuff we do, but it's how we measure the quality of the mixture that has been produced for our roads.
I love it.
And so that series covers all sorts of different things, but always want to invite people to that.
What made you want to create that?
When I interviewed for this position, one of the things that I was asked to present on was, what's something new that you would like to create that you think it would be valuable? And this is one of those things that kind of came out of that discussion is let's put something in people's hands, especially younger people's hands, right? Because I don't think that a lot of the folks that are coming through high school right now are really taught that there's great blue collar work out there. That there's great work in the construction industry, the public works industry, where I can stay in the community I grew up in if I want to. I can earn a good living. I can get the benefits that I would like to have to start a family or to keep my family going. So I'm hoping that Training in Your Pocket is something that can introduce high school kids or so forth into, hey, this is something I can do. Like you're saying, show up on the job or show up at an interview saying, I know the parts of a paver because I watched Training in Your Pocket. And that's the hopper, and that's the screed, and that's the toe point, and so forth.
And once you start learning the nomenclature and the the verbiage and kind of like the tone of the job site, like you can pretty much walk into any interview and have that confidence to be able to land that job instead of, again, showing up at 0. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, Travis, thanks for hopping on, man. Thanks for
Absolutely.
talking more about NCAT. Any final words before we get out of here?
Man, I don't know. Visit with us. Give us a call. I think we have some great opportunities for people. I would love to follow up, maybe have another episode with you at some point to just talk about the different jobs that are available that aren't Travis, that aren't NCAT, but what's out there in the asphalt industry, because I think that might be a great place to let people know that, hey, I didn't even think of that. To give you an example, I taught earlier, I went and did some guest lectures at a high school locally, and I taught 2 different classes. One was high school seniors who don't intend to have any education beyond high school.
Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And I talked to them about all the opportunities there were, this different job, this different job, this different job in asphalt industry. And they were like, I didn't even know that was a job. I'm like, yeah. And then I
Yeah.
went to the AP physics class, and we talked about the elastic recovery of binders and how the specific gravities relate to each other, and totally got those kids sucked into,
Yeah.
hey, I can do research in this because I'm mathematically minded and plan to go to college. So,
Yeah.
hit us up because we can help with all different levels there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about getting you on another show. I want to hear about your U.S. Virgin Island trip. Maybe we'll get you on a show. You're on the beach with your Mai Tais and stuff.
Oh, I tell you, my last trip down there, I was on the beach, but never during the daylight because we were at asphalt plants and quarries and looking at roads that were broken.
Wow. Good stuff.
Yep.
Well, Travis, thanks for hopping on, man. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in.